Greetings and welcome to the Pure Report. I'm your host, Rob Ludeman. It is time to bring the orange, and I am super thrilled. A guest that's been on my list for a long time, Naveen Neelakantam, works in the digital experience. I'll let you do your title and say hello to everyone because your title is something on LinkedIn and something on the internal boards. Like, what do you go by?
That's right. That's right. I think I've started to own the title, which is I'm Chief Architect of the Digital Experience Business Unit.
Awesome.
And I think the way that I'd put that is, I'm just responsible for the technical direction of what we do, looking ahead, but otherwise just try and have fun and help us build great things.
And that's what we're going to dig into. And I will say for the viewers, for the listeners, this is a prologue, if you will, a preface, because I've been working with the product marketing lead for DX and all the great things that we do in that space. And we're going to be doing a series that will debut
That's awesome.
in the weeks after this. And we're targeting 5 episodes and trying to hit on each of the different aspects of where we drive value, whether it's from Evergreen to Evergreen 1 to Pure1 to some of the new things we're doing with Copilot and assessments. And what I wanted to bring you on today is because you've been here 12 years?
Over
13?
12 years, coming on 13. Yeah.
Over 12 years.
Yeah.
How did you get here? Because I saw in your bio you started out at Intel, and it was kind of a sort of a generic title. I couldn't really glean a lot what you actually do or did there. But how'd you go from that and get started there? And then what was it like getting to Pure, now Everpure?
Sure, happy to share that story. So what I always share with people is that I grew up and I wanted to be a CPU architect. So at the time, Intel designed CPUs. So I actually got a PhD for that. That was the entry-level position there. And so I spent 7 years working on CPUs. And, the world has changed. I think CPU design has become more commodity. I think you see people like AI chips are more exciting. Yeah. I'm like an old school. I love the chip that was inside your computer. And
the same thing happened with memories, right? I mean, memories used to be really specialized and really fun, cool, and then the cache started getting built into the CPUs, right?
Exactly.
And
it's just commodity.
It's just commodity stuff.
No offense to some of my friends who still build that stuff.
No, there's cool things they do, and it's a tough job, right, to design chips.
And so I had an opportunity to leave there. Well, Intel's a competitive place, so it was time to move on. And I decided I wanted to leave the industry, and I honestly just looked everywhere. I interviewed at every kind of industry you could think of, and I ended up here, honestly, because I just really liked the culture. I didn't know anything about storage. I didn't know anything about what we do, and I ended up here because the people here are just really smart. They're really kind. They're not aggressive, and they want to work on hard things. It was just like, oh my gosh, I want to work at this place. Actually, I took the interview and I was like, I want to work there. I hope I get a job there.
Yeah, and they want to work on things and they want to do it collaboratively. And I cover culture on the podcast constantly just because it is a hallmark of then and still now.
It's shocking that we've kept it, to be honest.
And we have, which is great. I had a friend, a longtime friend, somebody I've known for 40 years, who just joined here. IOPS team, right? The integrated operations team.
Yep.
And after 3 weeks, she came and we bumped into each other in the hall, and she said, "This place is so weird." I went, "Weird, good, weird, not good." And she went, "No, weird, good." She just said, "Everybody is so nice, but everybody is also so helpful and collaborative and wants to work towards the same thing
and passionate without being, frankly, a jerk about it."
Yeah,
which is just cool.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that was a thing.
I know. Well, and you came from Intel. I was going to mention, like, Intel notoriously, now I heard stories over the years.
We had war rooms, we had dungeons. Those were like normal terms.
But were you ever part of one where, so I heard rumors that they would create 2 separate teams to work on a project, and the one that actually succeeded in one got to keep their jobs.
I was in a disruptive team and we did not succeed.
Oh. Okay.
So, I mean, but that was normal to me. That didn't bother me at all.
Okay, yeah, survival of the fittest kind of thing.
And I think it was great, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it does result in a less collaborative environment.
Yeah.
So
I would say. How many people were here when you joined? Like 400, 300?
Yeah.
It was in the hundreds, probably,
It was in
right?
the hundreds. Yeah, I think we had a couple hundred.
Yeah.
So it was smaller, but, I would say that I felt like I joined a company that was very obviously growing, and it didn't feel like a startup at that time. I think we technically were, but I joined the middle journey of kind of what's kind of honestly become the Pure that is now. So we've kind of grown into this, several thousand employee company, but it still feels similar. Like we still know each other, and you see people in the hallway. You still we still have that like connection with people. So
Yeah, I know fewer people that, when I was going to sales kickoff 7 or 8 years ago,
fair.
I knew
things roll. Yeah.
I knew so many of the sellers, and then I went this year and we had, however many thousands, that were there.
That's right.
I knew fewer. I still knew plenty, but still a lot of familiar faces, which also I think speaks volumes too. There's a lot of folks like
There's
you,
people
like
here
me, that have been here that are kind of,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm by no means the longest tenured person here,
No.
which is wild.
yeah.
So.
Does Chad Kenny count since he left?
Yeah, I'll say yes.
Okay. All right. We'll
give
give him
the
a pass
credit.
on that.
I'll give him the credit.
Well, one of the things that's fun at Everpure that we do is we stretch ourselves, and we stretched you last year. We stretched you. We got you very uncomfortable for folks listening, viewing. My VP and I, Stephanie, kind of craft what goes on at the main stage for our customer events, and we just decided, we need a new voice, a new face to go up and deliver all the innovations that we were doing at that time and at launch around cyber. And we put you up on main stage. What was that like?
Well, I mean, I think I just had to sigh there because, oh man, that was the most stressful thing I've done in recent history for me anyway. It was a tremendous opportunity. I mean, I think for me, it was like, I was just super, super honored. And I tried, it's a big stage, and you want to really put your best impression of the company. I feel like I'm representing all these great people working on things that are just really impactful. I didn't work on most of the things that I talked about, so I'm almost like a spokesperson in that scenario.
You got to learn it.
You got to learn it on the fly, and I got to get it right.
Yeah.
So it was tense. You guys were all just so helpful in making sure that I was supported. I remember I had like all the support I could need. I got a speaker coach that met with me multiple times.
Too.
Yeah, she's fantastic and just so encouraging. And I think saw me go through that whole journey of just being, frankly, a little bit freaked out. Actually, I think it was more the journey of me being too blasé, me getting freaked out, and then me kind of getting comfortable with it again.
You came along. It was a journey for sure, because we watched you. We did rehearsals. We did table reads. First rehearsal was kind of rough, but then when we actually did the day before rehearsal, you had it down, and you took all the speaker training to heart. You had your deliberate hand motions. Yep. You were not paced, what do they call it, walking back and forth in a cage like a lion. You were walking to a spot and talking to that part of the audience, and then, being very deliberate. And I think the message for everybody is we can always get better at our public speaking. And when I talk to groups that are earlier in their career, and sometimes they're engineers, or sometimes they're like, oh, why do I need to work on public speaking? I go, look, any job you get into at any company, regardless of your role, you're going to have to present to a room of people. Maybe it's not an audience of 1,500 at our customer event, but how you present yourself, how you look people in the eye, how you present makes a big difference.
It's actually interesting. Like there's a lot of skill to actually just connecting with another person, right? And they seem formulaic, but then you watch someone else who knows how to do that and communicate with you, and you feel more connected. And so these are important skills. Actually, I've continued to take coaching.
Oh, that's great.
In other ways.
Oh, that's fantastic.
In other places, whenever I get the opportunity to take it. And one of the coaches that I had was someone who did acting. I was like,
wow.
oh, wow. I bet like drama people are just really good at this. It's almost the same thing, right? Not to say that, acting is kind of putting on like a facade. It's that you're able to really just represent, and be present and kind of, share what you're thinking and connect. I don't know.
It's performing, right? I mean, it is. It's performing, but in a different way. And acting, maybe you're entertaining or you're pretending to be someone.
But in an authentic way, right?
Sure.
So, and that's the part where I think, as an engineer, I hear the word performing. I was like, it's just a show or whatever. And it's like, no, it's actually about trying to be as authentic as you can, and there's skill to that.
Yeah, I love that.
So I thought it was interesting.
I love that.
Yeah.
What was digital experience like when you joined? Did we even call it digital experience, right? And the backdrop for folks is, just to set up everything that we're going to talk about is one of the genius ideas about putting our storage arrays in customer environments is that we allowed this phone home capability, right?
Yep,
and we collect and capture telemetry data, call it log data, whatever you want to. But what that enables us to do is look at that data and find things, but also then increasingly over time do things that are value add for customers, which you contrast with, when I grew up in kind of database land, oh, I'm having a problem with my Oracle database. Okay, cool. call support. Can you run an AWR report, right? And then we'll take a look at it. And then time passes, time passes, time passes.
Yep.
This is an entirely different approach, which says you trust us with, Everpure, with the data that you're generating, but also you trust us because you know we're going to help you diagnose problems, or we're going to help you plan. Like, there's just so many things that we've done.
100%. Yeah, and actually, so just to kind of rewind back, I mean, when I joined, there was just software engineering, and we were all just one. I think it was just the engineering BU. I don't really even know.
Yeah.
And so we had this product that you said, where we have all this kind of information about how the product's behaving, and one of the other hallmarks of Everpure is our hardware can be non-disruptively upgraded to go from, the hardware can be changed while the appliance is running in the software. But all of that then led us to, well, we can really support this thing in the field really well. And so we've first built this thing called Cloud Assist, which was the phone home would come back, and it's in the name, right? It's like, how do we assist you from the cloud? Interesting fun fact, Ben Borowick actually wrote that. He's still at the company.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's great.
So, and that later on kind of evolved into some of the things that became Pure1 and later the digital experience business unit. But the name is really the origin story of why we did it. It was, we wanted to be able to give people this first-class support experience of, you give us the telemetry of how your array is behaving and so on, and we can monitor it, and we can proactively identify issues that are going to happen. And by the way, we can non-disruptively upgrade you so you just avoid the issue altogether. Right?
Yeah.
And so we used to have this mantra of, I think we still do have this mantra of, we really only want an issue to hit a customer once. Ideally, it should never hit a customer, but things happen. But if it does hit, then we learn from it. We basically say, well, what happened? What were the signs that were coming up to it? Oh, we have all this telemetry. Let's prevent that from happening for any other customer. So we learn from our field, and just our products get better as a result of it. So that was really the beginning, and that was the kind of telemetry touch point that led into all of the other things that we've been doing over the last decade.
And in a way, when I look at it, because I had, you remember Farhan, right?
Yes.
Remember
Yeah,
Farhan, right?
Of course,
And we branded the intelligence, the brain. At that time, we called it Meta. Before there was another Meta.
Yep. He was really passionate about that.
Was out there, but I had him on the podcast really early on in the program, and I was fascinated. I was blown away because he used these terms like machine learning that are far more in the lexicon now, obviously with AI, but that was 2018, 2019. Yeah. And I remember having him on, and he was talking about, well, we can look at traces of workloads and collect that. And then what we're going to go off and do is then help people plan their capacity or plan their expansions, because we know based on the trace that that's typically an Oracle workload, or that's a non-prod virtualization workload. And I was blown away, but we were at the forefront of doing a lot of interesting things with AI, with machine learning around all the data we had to capture those patterns.
Yep. And by the way, that's now what we call proactive recommendations. Yeah. And 100%. That's kind of once we realized, hey, we have all this framework around, we can really support our customer, and we can get ahead of issues. We can predict, problematic scenarios and get ahead of them. We're like, hey, wait a minute, we can kind of predict other things too. And by the way, it was absolutely Farhan who kind of took the lead on identifying some of that stuff. And it's led to one of the coolest things that I think we have in our product, and it's a little bit, hidden sometimes. I once met a customer where we have this thing called proactive recommendations, where we show you, hey, this is your projected kind of load or capacity over time. And he went to his leadership and said, hey, we need to buy more capacity because, by this date, it's projected that we're basically going to run out of capacity. And they didn't follow his recommendation. And the customer claimed that on that exact date, they ran into a step one where they needed more capacity, that we'd called it early on. And so it's kind of evolved from there, right? I mean, we're basically saying, hey, we can even model what new workloads you might want to put on there. We've gone in, we've said, we can kind of assess your environment and see, are you up to modern security standards, modern data protection standards, and just kind of help you get insights into what you're running, what you're using our products for, and, how do you get the more value out of it? So.
Well, and do it through an interface that's friendly, that's not offline as well, right? So
Pure1 is on the cloud, right?
It's in the cloud, right? But it's also got a really nice GUI, or it's on the phone. And I think for folks that were system administrators or storage administrators, decades ago, what did that look like? It's a series of spreadsheets, with different numbers and log data that you've dumped in, and you're trying to deduce on your own what may happen or might happen. Why not just do it here where we have the intelligence to bring that in, but also in a really nice interface?
100%. And that, by the way, that then led into a few other things that we've been doing over the years, which is honestly, it's the basis of our Evergreen One product in some sense, right? That telemetry allows us to create a product where we're really managing the physical appliance for you. You're just buying, kind of logical storage, and we take care of managing that hardware for you. We're monitoring it. We're making sure it's maintained the way it needs to be. You also allows us to do subscription services, right? So it's like, hey, you buy, 100 terabytes of storage, and we'll track your usage, and you can see it in the Pure1 app and keep track of it. If you need more, you can easily just one-click subscribe. So it becomes kind of like a platform for you to really manage not only what you're running, but also what you need to buy, what you need to procure. And so that was just another whole springboard of really interesting things that I think, frankly, disrupted the market. And more recently, we've been going into what we call active management or Pure1 Edge. You can now upgrade your appliance, from the cloud, right? So you can keep it all the software up to date. It's like updating your iPhone. You say, I want to go to the latest Purity version. It basically orchestrates the upgrade. It's all non-disruptive. That's it. There's nothing to do.
Yeah, and that Evergreen One comment you made is the real distinction between that and many of the other as-a-service offerings that are out there. I don't think we would be able to provide that level of meeting customer SLAs, what they're trying to drive to, if we didn't have that intimate knowledge of the data, because then it looks like what many of the other AASs look like, which is just sort of a fancy leasing agreement. We think you might need this much and we'll put this in, and we're actually connecting directly to what that need is, but also monitoring it. We have CSMs that are assigned to every account. Like there's so much intelligence that's built into that.
That coupling between the appliance and its telemetry and kind of our cloud platform to monitor it and get all the telemetry and so on, it allows us, we take responsibility for the hardware, right? And that's what allows us to do it. And now with that connectivity back from the cloud where we can actually, kind of affect the appliance, we can better manage it for you. And so really you're getting more to the point where it's software storage. There's a physical appliance there, but you don't really have to worry about that.
Yeah, and you don't think about that.
That's kind of been, I'd say, the last 5-6 years. That was really the journey of us leveraging all this telemetry and kind of our ability to connect from the cloud to really move us to this as a service capability, which we've just continued to iterate.
Yeah, and it continues to grow. People are figuring it out, and particularly right now where, there's some pricing pressures on
you're completely insulated
chips
from all
and
of that.
things. You get isolated from that, right?
Yep.
It's really, you're not going to buy extra and pay through the nose because the prices went up on a bunch of different components.
Your contract price is your contract price.
Yeah, I
That's
love
on
that.
us.
I do this thing on episodes since it's your first time where we pop out a stat and I just go do some Google searches on things that are germane and kind of relevant. I had a couple that popped out that I think are interesting and related at least to what we're discussing. 61% of infrastructure buyers expect their storage requirements to double by 2028 due to AI adoption. Global data usage or creation growing at a 30% CAGR, while infrastructure acquisition adoption is only growing at 19%, creating a widening capacity gap. And I bring this stat up right on the heels of talking about Evergreen One, because I think that's really the solution to the risk that comes with that data growth and that gap.
It's super unpredictable, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things about the reason why people like these subscription services is, you don't have to commit to what you're going to need in 4 years. You basically commit to whatever you need right now.
Yeah.
And that's what you pay for. But by the way, yes, that growth because of AI is just, I think data in general storage data has really gone through this really interesting shift where I think, we were helped part of the shift of making storage a lot cheaper and you can retain a lot more of it with flash, it's high performance, all of that. We definitely drove that change. But I think even then people were maybe more comfortable with retaining their data and having maybe delete less of it. We can dedupe it, all of that stuff. AI has changed the game. So it's gone from, hey, I want to make sure I don't keep too much because I've got some compliance reasons or governance I have to worry about, to, man, I kind of want to hoard every piece of data that I have because it's gold.
Yeah.
Any data that I have on what I do as a business, how I operate, some of my processes, like these are all things that are just going to lead to a lot of the efficiencies and, who knows? I mean, the world is just changing in the sense that we can harvest what used to be maybe a cost center or maybe it was a liability to being, data is king. And so, Evergreen One helps you manage the unpredictability of that. But, we as Everpure are also we're trying to lead in terms of, well, this is a transformational moment, right? Storage is now something that you just need readily accessible in order to, at high performance, to train models, to, be able to look through your data and try and just build agentic workflows. I mean, the world's changing. It's wild.
Yeah, but there's utility to it, right? And I kind of think of it as storage is sexy again. I don't know if storage ever was truly sexy. It always felt like CPUs were
this is why I didn't,
sexy, right? When I was in the 90s and I
yeah.
was doing CPUs as well, like
That
I was with Spark, right? And,
Yeah.
and Sun Spark stuff. And
great chips.
CPUs were really fun and sexy and into the early 2000s. And then it kind of became commoditized, as you said. And now because of this explosion of data, but also the realization that data that you captured maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago actually has utility now.
That's right.
To go look at trends and run models against.
Exactly.
Makes storage sexy. I'm sticking with that. I'm going with, maybe we'll make that the
it's true.
The thumbnail for this.
I think we've just seen a bunch of things been going on where, you vectorize data, like whatever it is, and it's useful in semantic search. And, I think there's a lot of really interesting things going on in terms of how we're going to start automating what we do as both people and businesses. I'm by the way, I've gone onto the AI, deep end, and I'm a huge advocate. I think it's a fantastic set of tools. But yeah, the data that we have about ourselves and what we do is what allows us to build a tool that makes our lives more effective and more efficient, things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're right in exactly the right place for it. We're even starting to see that every product should have an AI first, set of capabilities, right? It's like, okay, I don't really want to learn how to use your product. I just want something that kind of helps me achieve our outcomes, right? So we've actually gotten into that game as well. So Pure1 Copilot, really what it's trying to do is say, hey, here's your, agentic AI interface to Pure, and tell me what you're trying to do and I'll help you. And so it helps you triangulate on performance issues, help you, model your capacity, help you set up stuff. It can basically, hey, I want to go configure replication. It's like, well, here's how you do it. It can now start interacting with other people's models. So, MCP is a protocol that's emerged to allow us to really build AI orchestration of different infrastructure. So I can have an agent that talks to VMware and talks to Pure, or talks to, my, Oracle systems and start to orchestrate things through, English. And so, we're also building into that world. And so it's a really interesting time.
Well, it reduces some of the swivel chair stuff that you kind of have to go through, right? I mean, you think about, the ways you had to kind of click through different menus and different interfaces to find things out. Yep. Okay, I have a, Copilot line here. I can just type in what I'm looking for. And again, we demoed these things at our Accelerate events just to show. And then, the AI MCP one was fascinating, right? Because it came back and talked to you and told you what it was doing, and we're now at this step, and would you like the alert in ServiceNow or Slack? Right, it's all connected across the board.
I think actually, and I think we're just now at the beginning of seeing where that can get us. So you mentioned swivel chair technology. It's still fascinating to me. Modern companies today, even though we're all digital and everything's DocuSign or everything, we're still humans, and so we run our companies, be it like a hospital or a B2B business or whatever. We have processes for everything, right? So it's like, I don't know, who can approve an insurance claim, right? There's a process for that, and someone's following essentially a run book, and they've got, their set of information, but those are all documents that an AI can kind of process for you, and sort of we can start automating a lot of this stuff and make it. I think a lot of the menial labor out of what we do, and I think a lot of the swivel chair technology will still be nuanced.
Yeah,
but I think it'll be run through these AI agents that are kind of consulting the same things that we would have consulted as humans. So
Yeah, Rosemary calls it having your own team of interns. Right?
Yeah,
it's kind of like which I always
I
love.
I like that.
Yeah, but it was also very evident to me. I can't remember what show I went to. Maybe it was a couple years ago. It was a VMware Explore, I think, and one of our customers came up to the booth, and then I was curious, storage admin, IT owner. I says, what's going on? What are you being challenged with AI right now? What is the business asking of you? And the customer who ran Everpure, it was at like a farm credit bureau, right?
Okay.
And they were in Iowa. They were somewhere in the middle, the middle of the flyover states. And he said, oh yeah, this is coming down the line right now. Like the way we do support now and our customer agents operate is, you make a phone call and you have a question about your bureau reporting or your credit approval or whatever it is, and they have a bunch of giant manuals that they have to sift through either online or in hard copy. And, we're not sure how it's going to work, but we're being asked to supply the data management, the storage infrastructure to be able to digitize all these things and put the answers at the agent's fingertips via AI and speed up that process and improve customer service. Still not replacing the people, right? Which is always something that people get nervous about, but making the people more efficient, making them more effective. And that was, and again, that's a way out there example, like Farm Credit Bureau. This is not like financial services banking or, some kind of giant telco company. And that means if they're doing it, everybody's doing it.
100%. Yeah. So, I mean, just to give you an idea of like how data is now tightly integrated into how we all use AI, I'll use a personal example. So we run an AI hackathon inside of Everpure.
Super fun.
And we had a DX one recently. And I got to be a judge. And hopefully I'm not outing myself that I did this, but I was like, okay, I had a rubric.
They all know now. They all know. Naveen was the judge.
It was one of them, but no, the part that I'm about to tell is so there's a rubric on, how you're supposed to judge the entries, and everybody had a PowerPoint and a video. And so I got the ones I'm supposed to judge, and I was like, well, I don't really want to do this. I mean, I do, but I also want to see what if an AI could do this. So I basically took my codex and I basically said, hey, I'm a judge, and can you help me judge this? And so it's like, well, I need access to the file. So I worked with it. It downloaded all the files itself. I then said, okay, now using this rubric, can you please go and judge the hackathon? And it played the videos, OCR scanned every image. It didn't have the audio, so then I worked with it so it could transcribe the audio. And at the end, I went and actually did judge them myself.
Yeah, you did the work.
It took an hour and a half, but I came back and I asked the AI what it came up with, and it had the same answers that I did. And so the reason I bring that up is I think it's an example of there's things that we do where we're kind of following a process and, we're trying to, use our human intellect to apply some objective metrics and stuff like that. But, hey, you give the data to an AI and it does a pretty darn good job.
Yeah, it does all right.
So
it's getting better.
I think for me, it's just how do I accelerate, my efficiency and take out some of the tedium of my day-to-day job just by using more and more AI.
Yeah,
and
the
it all
mundane.
comes down to like accessing the data that are just part of my life.
How are our customers using AI Copilot then in that same vein, right? To take out the mundane. Again, we didn't go deep into Pure1. We'll save it for another episode because Pure1, I always get blown away. Like I go to that menu on the side and it's just like, what can we not do?
Yeah.
Right. Relative to Pure1. But AI Copilot is a more recent technology that we've brought into the interface. And I will say a little sarcastically, like when I presented it at a user group, there was a core of people that were like, oh, that's cool. I can't wait to try that.
Yep.
And there was a set of people sitting in the room that were our users saying, oh no, I still like my tried and true. Like I'm going to click through and do things. And that's fine.
Yep.
That's okay. But what are the breakthroughs that you think are most interesting right now with the Copilot capability?
And by the way, your point is entirely valid. So we live in Silicon Valley, and I think we're on the bleeding edge of some of these weird AI things. And so the hackathon thing I described, like probably normal for people around here. If I went back to, Chicagoland where I grew up and told my siblings about this, they'd be like, what?
Yeah.
Right?
I was in Phoenix for that user group. So
yeah,
again, kind of not that they're behind or it was just there were two classes, two different viewpoints of how aggressively we want to move in with this thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So I would say that right now I think our customers are using Copilot kind of like in the early phases of where we see AI going. It's it's a tool where they're almost asking, I like the term intern, it's like, hey, I'm noticing this issue. Can you help me go triangulate it? What's going on here? And it goes off and does a bunch of work and says, hey, I noticed there's an anomaly for this time period where, you mentioned there's a latency spike and I see it on this array here and it affects this VM, and just kind of going and give you some more information to triangulate, on what you're looking at. But I think where things are getting really interesting is we've also been starting to then orchestrate things for our customers. So for people that are kind of willing to go a little bit further, we have things like, hey, you want to move from VMware into a KubeVirt environment? Well, that's a orchestrated migration. You might be running on Everpure hardware underneath the hood. Hey, let me move your VMs for you. I'll actually build basically a template of all of the API calls I need to make to actually migrate that. I'll work with you on that. And then when you're ready to go, like, here, let's just go ahead and execute the plan, essentially. And so it helps you build what, I don't know, that might have taken weeks, a month to create, design.
And multiple people.
But I can come in and basically say, I don't even really know how VMware works. I don't even really know how KubeVirt works. I know what I'm trying to do. I don't know all the API calls. I haven't know how to write that script myself. And, it can help run a template that we've kind of curated for you. We've tested that template, it works, and it can set it up for you and run it. So we have scenarios like that. We have another one where, we view ourselves, like we said, we have all this telemetry. Well, we're part of your telemetry ecosystem. How can I share that information and those events with other parts of your ecosystem? So, you might see we have one of the things we didn't talk about, but we have an anomaly detection framework, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so we have the ability to say, hey, there's an anomalous kind of performance behavior. Maybe someone's encrypting your data or something odd is going on. We can send that as an event into your security system, and it might be detecting other anomalous behavior, and it sort of starts to help you triangulate on you've got an ongoing issue that you need to respond to, or vice versa. They can feed their information into us. So I think we're seeing this kind of amalgamation of these AI kind of conversational workflows and orchestration kind of all come together to really just automate things that you used to have to do kind of manually by calling someone, emailing someone, slacking someone. Let's take it to the next level.
Well, and I love the hallmark that we've always been API first, right? And I was flicking through, I don't know if it was Anand's deck, maybe on the AI MCP, right?
Yep.
So the MCP model context protocol, say that for folks, because we use acronyms
I
quite.
forget that not everyone knows this.
No, and
right?
There's lots of different levels of different expertise listening, so I want to make sure everybody's on board. But I was clicking through there, and we're connecting, as you said, with agentic systems and custom API integrations. But if we did not have that API first approach way back when, this stuff would be near impossible to carry out.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I think that, and just so people understand kind of what MCP does, essentially one of the flavors of it is to take APIs, because APIs are very, programmer-centric ways of accessing, your storage and automating. You kind of have to know how to code or at least script, right? With MCP, you basically turn it into a very conversational type of interface. It's something that the AI kind of understands. So it might be like, hey, here's a way where you can ask me about workloads that are running in my Fusion fleet, right? And under the hood, our MCP is really just an AI agent that then knows how to call all the relevant APIs to kind of synthesize that information, give you back a very English human response, which ironically will then be consumed by another AI.
Yes.
To go do more conversational, AI things. But it lets you build very, very, I guess, powerful, or maybe you could just talk at a much higher level than you would have before. Whereas before you'd have to first start with, well, how do I write a script that even lists what workloads are running on my fleet? Yeah. It's like, well, I forget all that. You don't need to do it.
Yeah. We're back to my example with the Oracle AWR report from before, right? Is you just get this big printout of all these different metrics across the database operations. Okay, now you need a detective, right, to go in and figure it out instead of it's talking back to you and saying, oh, I see this, we've detected this anomaly, or,
Yeah.
the other things on here, like fleet health, right?
Exactly.
And well, your performance is a little off over here, or,
Right.
it's covering capacity. It's looking at file system and objects, or you mentioned subscription status before, even observability, right? I had a couple of the principal technologists in here a couple of months ago, Sass and Bednar,
Yeah.
and we did a whole thing around telemetry and open telemetry with observability.
Yep.
That's another exciting thing, and we're playing in the sandbox with the tools that most customers want to use.
Yep. Yeah. And actually, all of these things used to be interesting, I think, from an engineering, I don't know, infrastructure kind of integration perspective. But with AI, I mean, it's really interesting watching people that normally wouldn't really be asking about questions that really get into those level of technical details. I mean, we've made it accessible to someone who otherwise wouldn't really have access to that type of data.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's someone who's, maybe a storage admin managing our products, or a VM admin or something, they think at a higher level, and they may or may not have the time to go and dig into some of these details. Now you can just ask like a human language question and get access to open telemetry metrics that are really, really deep, detailed metrics around, what was the IOPS, IO per second of this exact point in time, and all that stuff. I mean, that's just available to the AI, and it can start presenting.
And regardless of role, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's not that it's a bad thing that we're creating access to more people, but
democratization.
it eliminates some of the inefficiencies that come with, oh, well, I need to find the one person that's able to do this. I jokingly call it Carl. Carl was a sysadmin that I used to go, I think I've said Carl on this program. Carl was a sysadmin that I used to go present to him and his team at a very large aircraft manufacturing company. And Carl was that massive curmudgeon who didn't want to learn the new things, right?
Yep.
I show up every day and I map LUNs and I do tuning and all that. Don't tell me about all your newfangled things, but I'm sure Carl had things that he was the only one that he was able to do that. Carl also looked like comic book guy from The
That's
Simpsons,
awesome. Yep.
so not surprising. But
Yeah, that's great.
yeah, and hopefully Carl's retired by now, because that was a while back. I want to hit a few other things that you popped in, and just as part of our primer, we hit on subscription management a little bit already, but certainly important as we're seeing the adoption of Evergreen One, that people have the ability not just to know what they're subscribed to, but increasingly we're empowering them to transact directly and remove a lot of the inefficiencies that come with, let's face it, acquisition of a product or a technology. Super exciting there.
100%. Yeah. So, I mean, I think, by the way, one of the things that, I've been experiencing just as sort of the technical person responsible for the infrastructure that we run for Pure1 is the pain involved in trying to get any actual hardware that you might need. You have to tell someone ahead of time that I have this budget that I need, and well, what do you want to buy? Okay, well, here's all the different specs of the different things that you could get. Let's say you're trying to buy a Blade computer. Well, do you want 1U? Do you want RU, 2RU? Do you want it? What vendor do you want? What CPU do you want?
How many ports?
Do you want Intel CPUs? Do you want AMD?
Right.
And it's just like, oh my gosh, the selection. And then you haven't even gotten to the point where you're negotiating a contract and trying to buy the thing. So like me as, simple tech guy was just like, I don't know, I need some computers. How hard can this be? And it turns out that it's super, super complicated, right? And so I think that we've really, really simplified the ability to get storage. You basically say, hey, you've got a contract. You tell us, you think you're going to need about 100 terabytes of storage. You have the ability to burst beyond that. If you go beyond it, we'll pay for what you used. But hey, if in 6 months or 9 months or a year you realize you need to up that, just let us know. Do it from in product, and we take care of the hardware. We make sure it's going to support the capacity that you need. You don't have to think about any of that. You don't need to know model numbers. You don't need to know. You just tell us like, what performance do you need? What type of storage do you need? How much of it? And you don't even have to be that precise about it, because it's you pay for what you use. And so the combination of having that kind of abstracted as a service model, plus the ability to just really simply make changes just by logging to Pure1, see what I'm using. I mean, it hopefully people see that vastly simplified their lives, because I can see some of the pain of not having that.
You no longer need your own electricity generating plant right down the street like 100 years ago, or the folks that remember dial-up modems and having to deal with, like, how do you, I don't think about the internet now when you go home. Your phone connects, or TV's, it's just there.
You shouldn't think about
it's
your
just
storage.
on, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you shouldn't think about these things.
Yep.
Another one I want to hit, Everpure Protect. So often we kind of hit on security assessments a little bit, and it's adjacent, but this was via an acquisition that we made, and probably right around the right time, right? I think really interesting with things that have gone on with VMware and virtualization in general, but sort of a cloud-based way to do DRaaS, to do disaster recovery as a service, aligned to the subscription model that you were just talking about. And this is an interesting one, and I very interestingly see a lot more, like at Accelerate last year, bumped into multiple customers where, hey, what sessions do you like? Because I build the content catalog. I always want to, try to feed things, and oh yeah, I like this, and oh man, that Pure Protect thing, that was really interesting. We have a whole bunch of VMs we need to figure out how to do DR on, and that sounds like a much better way to do it.
Yep. And actually, I think that's sort of an evolution of digital experience that's ongoing now. It's just like, okay, you've got this platform for our kind of core products and monitoring them and subscriptions and everything we've talked about. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's a software platform that can help you with your storage needs. And so, like you mentioned, Everpure Protect, it was an acquisition, but it's now deeply integrated. It's been part of the company for years. I don't even lost track. But essentially, it's a way to deploy a software solution that it helps you say, hey, if you're a VMware customer and you've got an on-prem environment and you want an as-a-service disaster recovery, you want the ability to, when needed, recover into, let's say, a cloud environment or another VM environment. It handles, protecting those VM infrastructure, converts whatever's needed so that it can run in the other environment. You can even kind of run a test switch. So it's like, hey, I want to just make sure that if things happen, this would all work. And it stands up isolated recovery of
IREs.
That's
another acronym I had to look up. They use IREs,
isolated recovery environment.
Yeah.
And so you can use that for a number of things. It could be because you're trying to, figure out, hey, I might have a security attack going on. I kind of want to bring it up, see if this backup is clean, that kind of thing. Or you might just want to be testing, hey, disasters can happen. Would it work if it hit me? And so that's been kind of that whole aspect of the product is really an as-a-service solution for that, and it's continuing to improve as the years go by. And so that's kind of I would say that's another way to view what DX does, right? Is these software solutions that help customers with some of the problems that they're having.
Yeah, and super exciting. We that will be one of the episodes we do in the series, either with Chad or with Suresh, but also I'm kind of finalizing the Accelerate catalog right now. And maybe a few years ago we had like one where we're talking about it, and I think there's 3 or 4 different places where we're covering this in the whole scope of cyber resilience that the team is doing. It's
great.
Now it's just now a part of that.
And by the way, one of the things that's related there is, we have launched, I think I mentioned it earlier, the Pure1 Edge platform. And what it is, like I said, originally the intent of our telemetry was the cloud assist. Like, how do I help you? This is more kind of saying, hey, I'm connected to your appliances. How do I help you orchestrate what you're doing from Pure1 itself?
Yeah.
Right. So Fusion fleets are a way of creating a fleet out of our storage appliances. So they're much easier to manage. We're going to be introducing the ability to manage it from the cloud. So from Pure1, from your phone, right? Just make it much easier for you to do what you need to do, as opposed to what we've historically been doing, which is monitor what you're doing, right? It's sort of like, hey, like you can take action. You can solve that problem right now, and that's where we're going.
Well, and it's been monitoring kind of a one-off sense, right? Well, here's my list of arrays, and okay, I've got to click into each one and see what's going on. Now you've got multiple places where you can engage. Okay, I'm going to ask a question. AI Copilot, great, and it's going to look across the whole fleet. Or this new capability that you're referring to is now manage your data at a fleet level, right? To that mantra of stop managing storage, start managing your data,
Yep.
and do it with really intelligent software.
And do it from Pure1, do it from your phone, right?
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I love the phone thing. I've told that anecdote a million times, but
Yeah.
I was just blown away when I started here and, asked a customer at an event, oh, you use our products. That's amazing. What are you using? What does it look like? And the guy just fired up his phone
Yep.
and flipped open the app and went, well, and he started just clicking me through everything. I went, you got that on the phone? He's like, yeah, you want to see how they're running? Click, here's the performance. You want to see the capacity? Boom, here's this. I mean, even last year at Accelerate at our customer event, there was a customer who approached me in the expo hall and started asking me a bunch of questions. And I'm like, I don't know, but it was related. It was Pure1 kind of related. And I went and grabbed one of the principal technologists, and they fired his thing up and just started digging in and
Yep.
teaching him what he needed to do. I think it was moving VMs, right, from one place to another.
Yep. And more stuff is coming. I mean,
Yeah.
part of my job is to look a little bit further ahead. So
sure.
stuff that we can't really tease yet. But but the mobile is definitely something we're going to be doing some interesting things.
Okay, good to know. All right, I'm going to take you into we hit on assessment. We're going to cover assessments. You hit on those. A good podcast is when we go out of order of things, and I write these outlines just as signposts, and we were hitting.
And I'm also sporadic. So
it's great pod. This is my preference. I love it more. I love it more this way. But the one thing that I didn't put in here that you're not going to escape are the hot take questions. So I didn't put those in there. So you have to think on your feet a little. There's a few, since it's your first time, right?
Yeah.
I usually don't do it with
I love
repeat
that.
guests.
I love that.
So one, and I can do these from memory because I've done it so many times. What is some aspect of technology or something that you think IT leaders are missing today? What do you think is something they should be paying more attention to, that if they did, that would add more value, or it's a miss?
I mean, it's sort of the obvious one, but I'm not sure that people see the extent to which things have changed. So it's obviously AI, but I think people right now view AI as maybe this thing that's going to do their job for them or replace them. I don't actually think that's the right analogy. I think we might have had someone come give a talk at Pure or something. So I might be stealing this analogy, but I don't remember. But to me, actually, it's similar to what happened to society when the horse was domesticated.
Yeah.
Or domesticated animals in general. It's like, that's an intelligent being.
Mhm.
It can do things. You can train it.
Yeah.
It can, you can ride a horse. You can use it to plow. You can use it to create energy. You can, it's a form of transportation. There's a whole bunch of things, right? It really did transform the world when it appeared. It didn't replace people. It just made us way more effective.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It transformed society. And so I think that IT people, and to be honest, it's just everyone.
Yeah.
I think AI is one of those cases where I think a few years ago, people say everybody needs to program, blah, blah, blah. And it's yeah, that might've been true then. I think everybody needs to know how to use AI. I think we just this is, a technology revolution that is, I think we're just at the beginning of it, and it's going to be really, really wild where it goes. But if we're not deeply challenging ourselves on how do we use this new, semi-intelligent thing to help us do our jobs better, to create better products, to move faster, to innovate, all of that. I think we're just doing a disservice to ourselves. I think we're doing a disservice to society. I really think we're going to be able to go so much farther as just a people with this tool.
We should be able to solve some really giant problems, right?
Exactly.
As this continues to evolve. And like you said, it's still early innings in this, but the potential is there, which is exciting. I love the horse analogy. I'm going to kind of pack that one up and borrow it and put it in my back pocket and use
it's
it.
nothing to be afraid of.
Another time.
Fear is valid.
Sure.
We should be cautious about these things. We shouldn't be flippant about it.
Yeah.
But I think I'm an optimistic person. I like humans. I think we have we're good as a species. I think we'll find a good use for this that'll make things better.
I like that.
We just have to manage the issues.
I like the optimistic viewpoint. All right, here's the one that's always the most fun to pull out, and it can be from your Intel days. It can be something that happened here. But I like asking technologists, particularly practitioners, to go back and think if there was an oops that they did when they were doing IT, or maybe it was when you were designing chips. Did you blow away one of the designs accidentally? Do you have one of those that jumps to mind that
Yeah,
you don't mind sharing with everyone?
for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll give you more what happened.
Okay.
Because the actual technical details are just maybe a little nuanced, but I'll use a Pure example, and I think it was both something that was challenging for me at the time, and I think just really shows Pure culture shine through. I was a software engineer on the flash array product, and at the time I joined, and even now it's like, hey, go try and do things, change things, whatever. I was fixing. Well, I thought I was fixing.
You thought, yeah.
Part of our SCSI protocol.
Okay.
It has to do with persistent reservations. Very nuanced thing. And I introduced a bug. And at the time, now this is like fast forward a couple months, I'm technical lead of our escalations team. So support escalates to engineering. I'm leading that. And these escalations come in from a big customer, and they were experiencing an outage. And we're great at responding to that. Like, it's one of the things that I think Pure is fantastic about. We try and prevent these. But when something happens, we dig deep.
Yeah,
we take
everybody pulls together.
We pull together. We take complete ownership. We're very transparent about what happened. Like, there's no point in doing anything other than own it. So we own it. We dig into it. And some of the engineers, because I got to ask engineers to dig into it, they triangulate it, and then they do a git blame, like, who wrote this line of code? And then they come over and ask me to do it, and I was like, oh. And I felt so bad.
Oh,
and
man.
And at the time, it was like, I think it was the biggest deal that Pure had ever closed. And I just felt terrible, and I think everyone could tell I felt terrible. And they just were like, look, if you're not doing things, you're not breaking things.
It's true.
Right? So
you got to be trying.
The only sure way to not make a mistake is do nothing.
Yeah.
And so, let's own it. Let's figure out a way out of this. But that was a oops.
It's a good one.
And also just another thing about Pure is that customer ended up, I think, doubling their deal, because they just saw how we responded to the issue and how much we owned it and how we were very involved. We went down to got to the exact issue, told them exactly what happened. It's this guy Naveen's fault, and
yeah. This is Naveen guy, but we root caused it, and,
exactly.
And here's why it won't happen again.
Yeah,
right, all those good things.
That was the first time, because as a chip guy, I'm very far afield from a human that's going to use anything, right? But this was the first time that I had like direct impact on a customer that was negative, and saw the effect of what I do.
Oh, but you were trying.
I was trying.
Right? That's the main thing. Okay, last one, third one. Go back to Naveen 10, 15, 20 years ago. What do you wish you knew? What do you wish you had realized? Maybe practice public speaking more at the time?
For sure. So I do think, I was always like the math science nerd. I was like, maybe I should just sign up for drama club. Like, I think that's a skill that, man, anybody who's young or has younger, family members, like, that stuff is hard, but it's a life skill. Like, I think we all view science and technology as being life skills, but those are life skills too. Yeah. And so I wish I'd done that. But I think that the biggest one that I actually plan to share with my own children is people don't actually know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so
we figure it out as we go.
That you go through school, and I think you get this false notion that there's structure to everything, and everything is kind of known, and it's just applying the right formula or doing the right process or following, there's a book for that or whatever. And I think especially as someone just joining the industry, especially somewhere like Intel, it's like, okay, like, these are all experts. They know everything. And I think as you start to experience things yourselves and do more, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I realize I'm just making stuff up, right?
Yeah.
And I think that I'm doing the best I can with the information that I have. And so, I think for me, realizing that was liberating for myself, because it's like, it's okay to not know. And maybe the best thing I can do is say, I don't know, but then go try and figure things out. And I don't need to know everything up front.
That was one of the best pieces of advice I got from one of my first managers, right? I joined this post-startup memory company, SRAMs, DRAMs,
cool,
a little bit of flash, super fun.
Yeah.
Right. They hit it big during the SRAM shortages of 96. Like, they did great business then. And I joined, I didn't know what I was talking about, right? Like, they put me in front of a customer a month or two in and put the roadmap up and I started talking through things, what I thought I knew, which wasn't very much. And then customers started asking questions and I freaked out because I thought I needed to know
everything.
and I started making up
Yeah.
answers, which led to even more confusing. And so we're driving back to the building with Mike, my boss, and he just said, good job in there, really hard. There's a lot of information you don't know, but the only thing I'm going to leave you with is it's okay to say I don't know.
Yeah.
And to say I don't know and I'll follow up, or I don't know, anybody else that's here, can help me out. Like, you need to be able to say I don't know.
Yeah.
And figure that out. And that stuck with me for a long time.
And it's liberating if you can do it humbly, right?
Yeah,
You're just
for
like,
sure.
Okay, it's nothing to be afraid of.
For sure. Yeah.
So,
well,
yeah.
then as I went on in my career, I realized that's why system engineers were invented by God, because he or she always knows the answer.
Well, I mean,
those
guess,
SEs.
as I guess being one of those people, I was like, yeah, I didn't really know what I was doing.
No, there's an element of imposter syndrome that still, even at my ripe old age of 50 something,
right?
Like, there's still those days I show up and go, what am I, even when I'm doing these podcasts sometimes.
That's right. And that's what's the fun stuff,
yeah,
right? It's like, I don't, if I'm not doing things if I'm doing something where I always know what I'm doing, maybe I should be pushing myself a little bit harder.
That's right.
So,
That's right. Hey, this was fun.
that was super fun.
Yeah, you made it through. I didn't even give you the hot take questions in advance, so
Yeah.
you had a higher level of difficulty. Well, let's queue up the next 5 episodes. We're going to hit on almost every aspect that you talked about. Super exciting. Other members of the team that we will bring on and kind of double click, triple click down into the other layers. But digital experiences, it's super exciting. I love the way you presented it today, and hopefully folks got much more insight and depth into where we were and why we do what we do today.
Yeah, it was kind of went all over the place a little bit, but that's okay. No. I mean,
that's good pod.
Because I mean, we do a lot in digital experiences, part of the challenge, right?
Yeah.
And so I think if someone would say like, well, what do you do? It'd be like, I mean, it might be easier to say what we don't do.
I know,
but
yeah. Well, super exciting. Thanks. I wanted to have you on for a long time, and let's do it again soon, a little bit further out, maybe in the fall, after you all, you alluded to some fun, exciting things that are
I have already asked to not do Accelerate this year, so we will see.
I have a little bit of influence on that, although I've seen the way the agenda's shaking up, and I just don't think there's a place we can force you in. So we will give you a whole bunch of time back over the next 5 or 6 weeks here.
That's the other thing that I think
I
didn't appreciate is how much hard work goes into one of those shows. Right?
Events are grueling, and there's so many people behind the scenes that are doing things that you don't even, like, there's a person who just does food and bev.
I didn't even know that.
Because you have to feed all the attendees, and you have to feed the event staff that's there, and you have to feed the people in the like there's just a person whose whole job from Monday until Friday morning is to manage with the hotel or facility the food and bev, and it's an important job. We got to eat, and so many other jobs that I'm not mentioning, but I'm glad it gave you a little insight into the machinery that goes on. It's just totally so many moving parts. It's crazy. Where can folks find you if they want to continue the conversation? Are you LinkedIn guy?
I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay, great.
That's pretty much the only place that you'll find me.
Okay, awesome. No, that's great. Yeah, definitely reach out if anything that you heard piqued your interest today or that you watched. Great guest. Appreciate, Naveen, you coming on, and appreciate you checking out this episode of the Pure Report podcast. As always, tell a friend, tell a colleague, and we will keep the great guests like Naveen coming on to the program. With that, we will wrap. I'm still getting used to this. For Everpure and Naveen Neelakantam, this is Rob Ludeman saying, don't look back. Something might be gaining on you.